All right, welcome, higher ed digital community builders. I am so excited for this panel today. We are talking about Reddit, and I am here as a facilitator and as a student. I'm ready to learn because sometimes I go into this platform and I run right out. But there is so much to learn, not just the technicalities of the platform, but to further understand our industry, who we serve, who we support, and who is coming into our campuses very soon. And I'm very excited to be joined by a number of panelists who have taken the deep dive on this platform and in a variety of different ways have been advocating for this tool for a variety of different ways. And so I will first introduce myself. My name is Josie Alquist. I founded this group about a year ago. And there was one prompt that I asked the panelists to respond to, and it's been a theme for all of our panels so far this year because, you know, we're like a year into this funnel roller coaster. And so I asked them, what did you post a year ago on this date? And this is hilarious. So my husband and I, a year ago, were on the couch being good stay-at-homers, and we were doing face masks. And his didn't fit so well because of the beard situation, which has just continued to go out of control over this last year. I'm based in Los Angeles. I do research, consulting, and speaking all about digital community building and leadership. So with that, I'm going to pass it off to Erica.
Hey everyone, I am Erica Fields. I work at Carnegie Dartlet, and I am their senior social media manager. I think this past year has certainly been a wild ride, and I also was looking back to reflect on what I was doing this time last year. Come to find out, I was snuggling with my dog. He had just gone through double knee surgeries, and we were joking that he was working from home with me. Come to find out, we're going to be working from home a year later together. So I appreciated the extra time I've had with him here, but ready to get back into the office at some point and see my colleagues I haven't seen.
Yes, there's been lots of fur baby snuggles. I hope yours has fully recovered. Double knee surgery sounds quite the doozy. Okay, Steve, let's hear from you.
Sure. Hey, everybody. Steve App here from Campus Sonar. I would say a year ago, it's funny, I think when I look back at the photos from a year ago, it was mostly us trying to work from home on our couch with our kids on the couch with us, distracted by some other type of screen. And it's funny because now we've been forced to level up. We've converted a dining room into a home office. My wife and I have dual sit-stand desks that are about 6 feet apart, often working side by side, both on call simultaneously, which we actually are right now. So yeah, we were pretty novice at working from home with kids, and I did not think we'd be such experts a year later, that's for sure.
Goodness. Well, and you added another one in the mix of it as well. So...
Yeah, we didn't know that we were gonna have a middle of a pandemic kid, but we went for it. So that was a fun, just because things by June had gotten pretty normal, I think. So we just figured let's throw another twist and turn into this pandemic for sure.
Right, the new normal. And as promised, if you saw on Twitter, I can join Steve in a accessory, in a cowboy hat. I'll bring that out later, maybe. So couches have been a theme so far in all of our introductions about what we were doing at the beginning of the year. Maybe what we learned. All right, last, Austin, welcome.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Great to be here. My name is Austin Braun. I'm the digital media strategist at the University of Colorado Boulder College of Engineering and Applied Science. And just want to give props to you, Steve. It's been a tough year for everyone, but having kids in the mix just takes it to a new level. And talk about resiliency. Well done. Looking back on a year, what I was doing, I was just glued to the news, watching, making commentary just on my feeds of like, holy cow, this is happening. What's going to happen tomorrow? And just kind of, laughing the way, our way through it. So yeah, I don't know what I was doing specifically, but on the topic of couches, I've gotten pretty well acquainted with mine, as I'm sure you all have as well. So.
Well, my dogs have pretty much taken over our couch, and we have succeeded to them. But we probably should reclaim our couch in that way. So for those that are joining us live or even in the recording, we would love to know who's joining us. Feel free to say hello in the comments. Let us know what you were doing a year ago. And we'd also love to know if you are yourself a Reddit user, explorer, novice. Let us know your level of experience level. And so with that, we are going to dig in. So Reddit, all of the things. When did you first discover this platform? Erica.
I can go first. And this is embarrassing to admit, but I am a reality TV junkie. And I would say I learned about Reddit years ago. I have a friend who loves to just dive into the latest gossip with what's happening in reality TV. And she pinged me and was like, hey, have you heard of this thing called Reddit? It's awesome. You can get all the updates on what's happening with people before their shows are being streamed. So that was kind of my first forte into it. And I think luckily, I've realized there's a lot more value than just keeping up with celebrity gossip. But yeah, it's been a couple of years, and I think it's been really awesome to see the platform change over time, become a place where, our audiences in higher ed are tuning into, talk to one another, get information. And it's not just kind of the crazy place it was years ago that I first learned about.
Yeah, so this is kind of embarrassing too, for me at least. So I'm 25 years old. And so I've been on Reddit for over 10 years. Very much it came from the fact that back in the day, back when I was in my early days of high school, I was a part of a Minecraft server, playing Minecraft as a kid, as any high schooler would. And we had our community on Reddit. So I discovered the community there and just learned how to interact with people. And from there, I was witnessing the platform just continually grow, and at the time, I was really looking at social media as, something that I wanted to do for a career and learn more about, because I saw it being the way of the future. And from there, I just started engaging constantly with people, and I had multiple accounts. I'd try different things, and I would just post things that I thought were interesting. And I love that it's truly called the front page of the internet, because it's just this constant aggregator of what's going on online across all the platforms and websites that might be interesting. And also, to Erica's point, it has really niche sort of topics that you can engage in, with reality TV or construction science or anything like that. There's so many niches about it, and I really fell in love with it, and the community that was also very dedicated to it.
Well, that element of when you adopted it and the username accounts, that will come up later. So we're gonna pin that. Steve, how about you? When was your discovery of the platform?
I think I'm the newbie of the group. I discovered it, I'd say, more seriously in January 2019 when I joined Campus Sonar, and we were looking at conversations that were taking place about campuses, and more started seeing that those were taking place on Reddit. Before then, I'm a little embarrassed to say this, but it's probably very relatable to a lot of people. I knew of Reddit, but was a little bit skeptical of Reddit. And so I'd be that person who might, Google a question, and if the answer was a link to a Reddit sub-community, like I'd have that half-second pause, like, can I go to Reddit? Like, is Reddit a safe space? Like, because I have some trepidation there of like, what kind of content is on Reddit? And so it really took seeing college-related conversations to actually realize, oh no, this is the place that we need to be in, and not just me, but others.
Mm-hmm. So you're talking to someone who has never even heard of the word, the website. They've never been there. How do you explain it so they don't just go running away from you? As a good introductory. Anyone want to take a stab?
I like to tell people it's a super forum. A forum at its core is a place for people to gather around a common interest and communicate with one another. It's a pretty simple concept. What makes Reddit so unique and why it's such a popular website is that it has essentially over 100,000 different forums, if you will, right? I mean, and I know we'll get into subreddits and communities later when we talk about some of the jargon with Reddit, but that's really all it is. It's just a collection of individuals who are gathering around topics that they have in common with others and engaging back and forth. It's a pretty simple concept from that standpoint. I think where it gets complicated is the breadth and depth of what actually happens there.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. And what I really enjoy about it is, on many social media platforms, if you engage with somebody that you don't know with, or they're having an interesting conversation, a lot of people will say, well, who is this? They'll look into who's posting it. But the cool thing about Reddit is that you can just be anybody, no matter where you fall on the scale, just engaging in the conversation. And that content focus is what makes the content so rich. It makes all about that dialogue. And you can find some really insightful things on there.
I don't know about the rest of you, but my parents still don't know what I do for my job, 15 years into this career at this point. So I get asked this question quite a bit of like, well, what does that mean? Like, what are these platforms? So I always explain Reddit as it's kind of a more organized Twitter. So you can really hone in on the different conversations that matter to you. Yes, you can kind of do that on Twitter, but there's also a lot of noise there. So I think it's really just an expanded platform of Twitter. You can really find your community. You can really have those deeper conversations. And Austin, to your point, you can beat anyone. It doesn't matter. And I think that's what really makes the platform unique. You don't have to have, all these followers and have been established on the platform for all these years. You can really just jump in at any point where it makes sense. And I think that can be a really valuable aspect of Reddit compared to the other social channels.
Awesome.
I think
that differentiation is important. Go ahead, Steve.
Well, I was going to say that anonymous nature of it, especially from a college standpoint, is what I think makes that conversation so worth listening to, especially if we think about traditional college age students and prospects. If you look at their other social networks, their profiles on Instagram or Facebook or Snapchat, TikTok, right? It's very refined. It is very filtered. There's a lot of pressure to only share what reflects positively on you. With Reddit, there is no such pressure because your username could literally be college throwaway account. We see that quite often, right? Users that are literally putting throwaway in their username because it's used for a very particular moment of time, and then they're just going to delete that account when they don't need it anymore. But that, anonymous nature of a profile can really let people be more honest, more vulnerable, more open in the struggles that they're going through. And I think just makes the conversation more honest and believable, right? If you're doing marketing research, I think you're going to see a much more honest picture of your campus on Reddit than you are other social platforms where people are really only going to share the good because it bodes well for them, or the negative because they're angry and they know that that'll get a reaction.
It's a really good point, and I echo that as well. And it's also compared to other social media platforms and accounts, you don't have to tie your identity to it. You don't have to put your name. You can do it whatever you want. And it's also really easy to create an account. Or if you want to chime in on something anonymously, you just create an account. It takes a couple seconds. You post what you need to post, and it does bridge that dialogue that's more open and just real and more, less about how it'll make you feel in the real world and more about getting the answers or the content that you want, in the digital space.
So question, again, I am a novice. I'm not at all going to hide that. I logged in a couple days ago and I saw my username was some kind of crazy, like Salesforce something 21249. I was like, wait, who is that? Like, so would I want to make it my name? And Austin and Steve both talked about having multiple users for multiple functions. In other platforms, we would really discourage that. I guess this is just thinking of us as individuals, but we're going to get to the question about us as higher ed professionals too. So maybe just break down that almost the culture of Reddit user names and behaviors.
Yeah, I mean, so when I use multiple accounts, I have to ask myself, what am I using this account for? Is it a throwaway, or is it an account that I want to continually engage with in a subreddit community? And if you're looking to build a rapport or, build other online friendships, it's good to have a recognizable username, one that's unique to you, and it can be anything you want. But if you're looking to engage or tell a story about something that's personal to you, but you don't want people who might see it on the front page to know it's you, then you just create something a little more vague, and it works really well either way.
So is it common to like I tell people my Twitter username, right? Like, do you tell each other your usernames? Is that really in the culture of Reddit, or is it really more discoverable in the platform? It's not really about who you are.
I think for me, it's more about the platform, and it's less tied to me. So if I have my username, I do have the username Austin Braun. I keep it more formal because people can tie that to me. But if I'm an anonymous account, but I'm posting on a relationship forum, or I have a question that is more personal, but I don't want tied to me, then I can just ask that. And that anonymous factor can really give you some good insights that you can't find anywhere else.
Yeah, I would say I think it probably depends on what you're looking to get out of it. So if you're a college or university and you're using it more for research, I think you could go the anonymous route of just being there and listening to the conversations and doing that information gathering. But if you are representing yourself as a professional, then you probably would want a separate account and be more thoughtful on those conversations you're joining, how you're positioning yourself. So I personally have the two different accounts where I'm Erica Fields, like I am across all my social channels. And then I have the other one where I just use it to gather that information and get insight into what other people are saying.
Because I was pretty proud of myself, the username I came up with that was still like, I feel like in the culture of Reddit. So you let me know if I should share it or not, or we'll just let it be. Okay, so let's situate it in higher ed, and still a little bit of logistics. What is different about engagement on Reddit versus other platforms? It already sounds like there might be some different ways users are showing up, both that they have different accounts to do different things, as well as how we can show up on those things. So, again, we can kind of go pretty quickly through this so then we can get to some more advanced stuff. But again, how would you see engagement looking on this platform?
I would say expectations are different. And Steve, I'm sure you have a lot to say about this topic since I know you talk about this all the time. But I think users don't want colleges and universities to be joining in the same way that they might on Instagram or Twitter or something like that. They really want it to be their own community. And I'm sure they understand that we're all there watching and listening and seeing things that are happening, but they don't want, X, Y, and Z university chiming in as that institution. I think that's really what makes Reddit different than some of the other platforms out there.
Okay, that's really powerful. Thank you.
Yeah, I think anyone who knows Reddit from a higher ed background has heard, like, you don't sell on Reddit, you don't market on Reddit. I actually think that's gone a little bit too far in that direction, though, and I think it's actually intimidated people from getting involved in what can be a really useful community because they're so concerned and nervous that they're going to have a misstep and then alienate themselves or cause a big decline in apps or inquiries because they've taken this misstep on a popular subreddit or whatnot. So I think people are almost a little hesitant to jump into it when they don't necessarily need to be. But Erica's right? You don't treat it like you treat every other social platform. The individuals that I see who are most successful are the ones that come into a community that is related to their area of expertise and just start and stick with a value-based approach. There are, from a higher ed perspective, within a college or university subreddit, lots of questions that are about student life and student activities, organizations, mental health and wellness. Some of those questions should be answered by peers, but some of them need an informed opinion from someone who is an administrator on campus. And if you can stick to those questions and insert yourself into the conversation in that way, you will be welcomed. And we've seen plenty of examples where administrators are welcomed into those communities. It's just a matter of, if you're going to come in and say, you're going to love it here because it's a great campus and our student satisfaction rate is 90%, get your application in today. It's just not the approach that's going to work here. You're going to be shown the door pretty quickly.
So this platform is such an interesting example to talk about different internet cultures, like what you might see on Twitter or Snapchat versus Reddit, and to really listen and, well, know your place is not the right the right word for it, but there is this culture of behavior and activity, and especially the lens of higher ed. Those examples are so important to really hear for folks tuning in. So there's the big front page of Reddit, which is trending, right? Like almost like YouTube trending videos and news. And then there's subreddits, which if I was to maybe understand it, is it like a Facebook group within Facebook? Like, so then there's smaller pockets of communities that you could join that could be created by someone, right?
Yeah,
explain a subreddit to me and how communities might matter for higher education.
Yeah, so in the case and how I use it, so I use a little bit of a hybrid based approach when I'm posting. So there's the r/CU Boulder subreddit, which is for all things CU Boulder, questions, answers, pretty photos, memes, and more often than not, in these days, a lot of criticism about what's happened or how things are being handled. And my approach to it is, I have the brand account, it's CU Engineering, and I got in contact with the moderators. Now, the moderators of a subreddit, more often than not, are just random people that created it and just built up this community and, said, hey, do you want to help with this? And they earned trust. And throughout the years, they end up building something really cool that's really niche. So in the CU Boulder example, whenever I post on it, I know people don't want to hear about, the stats or like apply today or this deadline's happening now. And when I'm on Twitter, for example, on the CU Engineering account, I talk so much differently to that audience. It's more formal. It uses grammar. It uses AP style. It uses these different things that I don't do on Reddit. And now when I'm on Reddit, I try and engage with every thread. And I try to let my personality show as somebody that's a recent grad that can be more empathetic to what these students are struggling with. And I'll just engage with them back in a way that's as a result of me being and lurking on that subreddit for so long. I get the inside jokes. I know how to respond. I don't put periods everywhere. I don't capitalize I's. It's very informal. And at least in the example of CU Boulder, they love that because it feels like they're talking to an actual human that's on the inside, not just the corporate account jargon where they know they'll get a canned answer. And I think that's especially valuable for incoming classes.
Yeah, speak like a human. What a concept. So someone might be tuning in now or when this is recorded and they're like, well, like you said, someone else had created these accounts and you almost had to like introduce yourself, like maybe have some good favor. How would you find out if there are subreddits about your department, division, university? And are there any tips about then maybe working together with those existing subreddits?
Yeah, so when I onboarded, my account onto the subreddit, I just went to Google and I had knowledge that the CU Boulder subreddit would exist. But for anyone else that's still unsure, just go to Google and type in, University of Michigan subreddit or whatever, and look at the users, look at the post frequencies, what conversations are happening, and pulse from there and do some research, lurk for a while, make it a everyday habit to go on there and see the sentiment that people are talking about. And I would almost say too, don't over strategize your entry into the Reddit. Message the moderators and say, hey, I'm XYZ with the department or with the college. Here's how I'm verifying my identity. I'd like to join in or at least get a tag on my account to say that I'm a representative and that I can do stuff here. And I think that's the first step to do that. But, the big part of that is doing your research and lurking and understanding the nuance about how people talk, what they're talking about, and understanding the pitfalls if you come in and say the wrong thing, because all it takes is one bad experience to sink your account before you even get started.
I also think it's important to understand what people are trying to get out of that subreddit too. So I spend a lot of time in more like generic higher ed subreddits, I would say, since I'm not on a college campus. And some of them are very more prospective student focused, some are current student focused, some are housing, financial aid. And so I think understanding that specific is really important too, so that you aren't trying to force the conversation to go in a direction that it was never intended to. So Austin, to your point, I think it's really important to lurk for a while, try to get a feel for what people are talking about, what they care about. And I think that introducing yourself to the moderators is a huge one too. I think that's really beneficial to not just be this random person that starts to try to join the conversation, because you will be kicked out faster than you know.
So that's what you mean, is like literally you will be removed from the subreddit? Is that a thing that happens?
You can be. So
Okay.
Moderators, and each subreddit is different, right? And this gets to the nuance of Reddit, is that each subreddit can have a very different feel, very formal guidelines in terms of actual community guidelines that you can read and adhere to, or just generic, don't be a jerk guidelines, depending on if it's a more informal subreddit or community. But generally, yeah, moderators, who are almost entirely volunteers, I should point out, they don't work for Reddit. This is just their spare time because they like the platform. They have the control to censor language, to disallow posts, to delete comments, kick users out. They have a lot of power. And so it is, like Austin and Erica both said, like introducing yourself to a moderator is an important first step, especially if you do represent a university, because they will ask you to verify your identity so that they can be sure that you're not just an imposter coming in and saying, hey, I'm CU Boulder, let me say some wacky stuff here. They want to make sure that that person is who they say they are. And Austin mentioned, labels. It is an anonymous form. Reddit is anonymous in nature, but one of the ways that certain subreddits will allow you to share a little bit of information about your identity is what they call flair, which is essentially just a little icon or label that appears next to your username. And you'll see, that might be something like, high school senior, or admissions consultant, or, for someone who works on campus, it might say verified admissions representative, or something, or, official brand account, something of that nature. Each subreddit can have different, phrases and labels for their flair. But that's why that kind of legitimacy is important. That's why taking that extra step to introduce yourself is important, because it does give you just that little bit of credibility as you start getting more comfortable contributing to your conversation.
Yeah, and when I first joined the subreddit, before I'd even really started posting, I had made it a goal of mine to build rapport with those mods and to understand what they go through. And I'd even offered to say, hey, happy to verify who I am. And let's get on a call maybe and just talk through what you think this could look like, some of the nuances I have to know. And that call didn't end up happening because we just agreed it didn't have to with the experience of the platform that I had with it. But most moderators, they're there to serve. And as Steve said, they really enjoy it for the forum-based community that they get to build. And they'll always be happy to introduce you and to help you out. And so on the subreddit, on the r/CU Boulder subreddit, on my username, it says verified, and it has a little check mark that they added. And I just asked for that. They didn't have to give that to me, but it's one of those things that catches the eye of people when they're reading, because it's not just random username. There's this special little flair to it. And so that kind of gives my comments more exposure, which has been useful. And even if it's just me writing LOL back to somebody, or ha ha ha, yeah, business students, because I'm in engineering, business students have a little rivalry. We fully acknowledge that because that's what the community does anyway. So it's important for us to be acknowledged that, because it's just a great way to build rapport with students.
Who knew the beef between business school and engineering students? But it's real.
Mm-hmm.
And who doesn't want some flair? So on this topic, before we start talking about creating a subreddit from the start, what do you see as the difference between social listening, lurking, learning, and taking action and actually posting and commenting? Because I'm also kind of swaying this question to knowing the culture of subreddit, the honest nature, the open versus maybe burner accounts or whatever those are called. This platform is pretty honest, raw, real. So I see a lot of folks in higher ed maybe struggling with that they would see some behavior that on other platforms they would maybe even report or feel like they need to take action on. And this is also my student affairs hat, as I promised. So I would love some thoughts and reactions about that element of the tool.
Yeah, I think it's really important to, Josie, to your point, like understand that people are going to be more honest on Reddit, and like embrace that, because you're going to get more insight into what's bothering your community, maybe hiccups that they're experiencing that they just don't know how to verbalize to the administration. I know, at least in this past year, I found it really fascinating just to hear the struggles that high school students were having in terms of realizing, like, I can't take the SATs like I thought I could. I can't go visit campuses like I thought I could. And so I was advising my clients, like, just go there and listen. So if they're worried about not visiting campus, that's an indicator to you. We need to offer more virtual options. And you don't have to join that conversation, but just hear what the problem is and find a solution so that then your campus can help be the solution instead of adding to the problems they're already facing. So I think that's really my biggest tip of, one, don't take offense if people are calling your campus out. It's kind of the nature, people are going to be honest. They have that ability to not be who they are on other channels, so they can kind of dig into what's really bothering them, but use it as a way to solve issues. Don't add more issues, but really be the ability to be that solution that they're really seeking, but don't know how to verbalize it otherwise.
I feel like there's actually three. And you guys can tell me if you disagree, but I feel like there's actually three levels here, right? There's the listening component, which is at the baseline, like lurking, understanding, I think everything you just talked about, Erica, which is that, like, how can I use this information to inform other things that I'm doing away from Reddit? Second level to me is facilitating, which is actually, I'm going to see the questions that prospects or current students are asking, and I'm not going to respond as a campus administrator, but I am going to make a connection to a current student or someone, an ambassador, a tour guide, someone that I kind of know and trust. And I might send that message to them and say, would you be comfortable sharing your opinion in response to this question? And then I think there's the direct engagement level, which is that next level up, which is where I think, as Austin has talked about pretty clearly, right, picking your moments and knowing, staying within your lane, but actually chiming in only when you can actually offer an opinion that has value and is not available from someone else in the subreddit.
Yeah, I love what you just said, Steve. And a lot of that also has to do with being realistic about expectations when issues come up. More often than not, I'll be tagged in something where there's a campus issue, and I'll reply openly and say, oh, this is not good. Yeah, unacceptable. Let me DM you my email. Let's take it there. And people want that. They want to be heard. And it's okay to take those conversations sort of to an email or to get in contact in the private chat function that's on the subreddit. And one of the things that I've done more often than not that works well is, I'll post a funny post, a meme, or just something lighthearted, and I'll get a comment that's like, hey, thanks for posting the meme. Can you tell your administrators to fix X, Y, Z, blah, blah. There's just, people are frustrated, and it's important to understand why they're frustrated versus, being like, oh my gosh, they're frustrated, it's PR crisis. And I'll just reply, I'm just the social media person. I can't help you. Like, I have no control over these high level issues, but here's a link to a feedback form. And by the way, I just, PM'd you my email. So if you want to take it there, we can have that conversation. But fully acknowledging that you can't come onto these Reddits and solve the issues that most people are going to be asking. But as long as you acknowledge that and say, we're really trying, you can go really far with that and build a great rapport with the community.
Awesome. Using it as a customer service tool. Sorry, my computer had a little meltdown there. I know y'all are pros. You could run this without me. I swear I wasn't going to go get another cup of coffee or anything. So as we think about a strategy for Reddit, one could be listening, using it for customer service, just a knowledge of what's happening. The other could be the actual creation of a new subreddit or joining an existing one. So what ideas, what great practices have you seen out there for those listening, thinking about creating a strategy around Reddit moderation? Also, it could
I
be
mean,
why you shouldn't have one.
well, I think it's a
People out of
matter.
it, too.
To me, it's a matter. Like, I don't think you can't just make a community appear. And I know that's really broad advice, but probably hopefully one that relates to the people that are in this community, right? Is like, you can't just manifest it out of nowhere. So if you don't have a subreddit that's taking place about your campus, what you need to go do is just start searching within the Reddit website for your school name or acronym or mascot, or like, is there anyone out there that is talking about your campus somewhere else within another niche or, subreddit? Because if there's not a lot of conversation taking place about you, or if your constituents individually are just not active on the platform, and that might be the case depending on your campus size and culture, then it is what it is, and you need to just let things lie. The only time I think, and even with creating a subreddit, maybe this is just I know it's my personal opinion. Austin can tell me if I'm way off base. I don't think it's in a school's place to create the community. I think that has to come from individuals, and that can come from alumni. I see that quite frequently, people who will put their graduation year in their title or flair. It could come from your students, but I just don't think it's something you create on your own, because I think that takes away the credibility that is inherent within Reddit, right? Like, if you see a subreddit about CU engineering, and I see that CU engineering created that subreddit, I'm like, well, this is just another place that I'm being moderated or monitored. But if I see that these 3 alumni created that subreddit, then I feel more safe, and then I can be more open and honest and joining in community and engaging in that community. So I don't think you do. I think that's the short answer. Sorry, I rambled, but I just don't think you do.
Steve, I could not have said it any better. I agree fully. I would be really shocked for most universities or any higher education institutions if there isn't already an existing subreddit. I think a lot of that's already been taken care of. So I would advise to not build one. And to your point, no one wants to see that, oh, it's just another place where, the admins, are moderating. It's important when you're joining Reddit to be a part of an already existing community. You don't want to build that community up because people aren't going to trust it. You're going to lose the credibility. And it's really impactful when you can join in the conversation versus building the conversation, because that just shows that you're another person. You're a human, and you're just trying to help where you can, and you're not trying to push anything or make it all look pretty and spiffy. You're just there. And I think that's really valuable.
And Steve, to your point, I think it's okay if, the campus doesn't have a subreddit. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. If anything, it's probably a good thing. It's one less place that as administrators, you need to go and monitor and keep a pulse on. But, if you aren't finding anything when you're doing your searching, ask your students that work in your office that you have a relationship already. Ask them if they use Reddit, if they know their friends are using it. I think that sometimes we just aren't searching correctly either. I know when I worked at a campus, there was a lot of language that, just the students and alumni used internally. And eventually we picked it up and, we knew what to search for. But sometimes you just don't know that off the start, especially if it's some new language. So tap into your own community and ask them, are you spending time here? What are people saying? Where should I be looking?
Well, and that might come as a relief to those listening. They're like, okay, I'm not walking away. I don't have to go claim all the domains. At least having the knowledge of what current communities exist. I do know, so a lot of individuals that are part of this community specifically are buried in departments and programs and organizations, as well as main university communications. And I have heard of some popping up for a subreddit for the career service office, or, so one might also inherit or is trying to manage a subreddit. So it's kind of going against what you said. What do you have any guidance, suggestions for them to cultivate that space that still exists in the architecture and culture of Reddit?
I think for me, and so working in the College of Engineering, so we have the engineering college and we have 6 different departments underneath that. And all the time I'll get department heads are like, hey, we want to create a Twitter account specific to this. And then it becomes this whole process, and people don't realize what work has to go into facilitating that. And so I always say, well, let's just keep it to one place. Let's just it doesn't have to be so hyper specific to you. And, if you want to create a career services subreddit, you don't have to do that, because most likely in the college subreddit, there's already going to be career service questions. There's going to be posts about jobs, internships, and it's up to you to scan and to engage in those conversations rather than creating extra layers for other people to go through to have the answers they need.
Yeah, we'll do social media audits for colleges occasionally, and what we find, and what is sometimes upsetting, is like it's a lot of inactive social accounts, and in a lot of ways Reddit is no different in that regard. It's better not to have an account or a subreddit than to have what looks like a graveyard when people visit, because that is for some people going to be a first impression. And if someone's looking for a career services subreddit, I would rather them not find it and just go to the umbrella subreddit and ask their question there than to find that subreddit and see that there has not been a post in a year or two, or no one responds when someone does ask a question there. Like, that is just a bad look for your culture and your community. So again, if you're thinking of it, really make sure that there is conversation that exists and warrants that creation of that. If you're inheriting something and you have moderator status because you've inherited it from a management standpoint, and it's not generating any community, shut it down. Shut that down.
I would say I agree with both of you guys. I know, even just thinking about ourselves, I went to a college, I was in a certain program, I participated in this club, I did this sports, but ultimately at the end of the day, like, I still affiliate myself with the school overall. And if you think about it, as prospective students are going through the decision-making process, they might be changing the programs they're interested in. They might not know yet if they want to join a certain club. So trying to put people into boxes that maybe would only be relevant for a short period of time doesn't always make sense. Let them see kind of that holistic picture of the institution, and be kind of engaging throughout their entire life experience with the school, whether it's I'm a prospective student, I have questions about what campus life is like, or I'm a current student and I'm having problems with X, Y, and Z, or now I'm an alum and I want to still participate and help other students. I think we oftentimes try to put people into little buckets that they don't really want to be put into, but we've made it that way that they are forced into it. And I don't think you need to do that on Reddit in any respect. Like, let people self-identify what they're most interested in, and let them have those conversations as they want to.
Yeah, and I think in the same way that Reddit's the front page of the internet, it's a one-stop shop where people can see what's popular. Is it this new TikTok? Is it this new viral tweet? People want to have the one-stop shop. So it can also be the front page of your university too. It can be everything that anyone would ever need. And it can also prompt questions that people who are reading it might not even think about and get value from. And that's where the real value is.
Shut it down. That's such a tweetable. I can't get that out of my head.
We're a year into this pandemic. Just generally, just shut it down.
There are what I see, so many lessons in Reddit. While it is such an interesting, again, like, culture, so many of these practices are applicable on other platforms. From showing up as a human, like, don't advertise or you're going to get kicked out. Like, don't be on a platform and have a whole bunch of graveyard accounts. I mean, there's so many things that why I would hope anyone listening is at least going to go on this tool to listen, to learn, to get to know. Because, so y'all tell me, obviously I could dig up the data. Who are the most active users of Reddit that we would want to know about for those that serve in higher education? This is not like a quiz, just from what your own research and understanding.
So not Wall Street, you're saying?
We all have these 401ks, maybe, I don't know.
The key, so it's, first of all, everyone, right? I mean, Reddit, I think, is up to 52 million daily users now as of late 2020, which is a huge jump since the pandemic started. They're still very popular within that. If you're at a college, what I would say is probably going to be your traditional prospective admitted students through your young alumni. your major gift, alum is probably not there. They're going to be on a platform like Facebook, but definitely your current students, and I would say your young alumni, they're most likely to be on there using it individually. Austin may have different statistics, being that he's in his actual subreddit.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. You're not going to find the people who graduated X years ago, on the Reddit, because they're not attached to that new community, because it is a new community compared to what Facebook is. For us, it's really important to address the current student body that's there, and to meet them in the middle where they're at. And that's where we see a bulk of our users fall into that demographic from. And we also know too, with all the perspective questions we get, hey, what GPA is required to get into this college? Or, hey, what's needed for me to be here by sophomore year? We know that people in high school are scouting the subreddit and using it as a tool of research. And when they come to the subreddit, they want to find good answers. They want to find good content. They want to find a community so that they can, picture themselves in that community when they're a student, because community is everything. And we've learned that in the pandemic, and especially on the digital side. It's truly everything, especially to Gen Z, because they were raised on these platforms.
One thing I want to add, there's one thing I know we're talking a lot about admissions focus and enrollment focus. The one other thing is that might not be your goal on Reddit. And in that case, right, it's a different audience that might be of interest to you. There are some really great examples of colleges that are tapping into those really niche communities around neuroscience or astrology and woodworking and things of that nature. And they're using those communities to amplify academic research that their faculty are conducting, AMAs with certain members, or things of that nature. So from a higher ed perspective, like your constituents, right, that's one focus or target audience. But if you're in a central marketing team, and your focus is brand and awareness and trying to get more people to understand that you have a particular area of study that is really popular or high quality at your campus, the audience may actually not really be affiliated with your school. The audience that you want to look at just might be, again, like the core of Reddit, affiliated with a particular area or topic.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, there's a lot of folks in student life in this crew of a community. And again, like a student could share their frustrations about residence life or dining, or can't find information about graduation. What I think that they would have to resist is the wanting to solve things, wanting to promote things, having a different role in this platform, shifting that, and not, again, needing to create more stuff. Hopefully they are hearing that. So this question isn't on the list, and so no pressure, but I'm curious if any examples come to mind of, like a case study, right? Like an example of a student does this thing, and I'm not talking about like they're gifted a trip to Disneyland, but like, is there any examples that from simple to significant of something that you've seen or heard of or has been featured that might be valuable and meaningful to someone tuning in on this about Reddit?
Erica, go ahead.
I was going to say the one case study that stands out to me, and it's a couple years old at this point, is it was just a random student who was frustrated with the amount of marketing he was getting from colleges. And he just like went on a tangent on Reddit of like, this has been my experience. I'm on all these email lists. I didn't sign up for them. Like I'm getting 1,000 emails a month or something crazy like that. And for me as a marketer, I was like, okay, I'm not personally the one who's bombarding these students this many times, but as an industry, we really need to be shifting our approach to this. So I think for me, that was just a valuable, like, oh, we really are causing prospective students to lose their mind and add more stress to an already stressful process. Like, why are we doing this? One, we're wasting money because they hate what we're sending them. But two, like everyone who chimed in on that thread was like, yes, I'm glad someone actually like tracked all of this data and the amount of emails and the amount of brochures. So it wasn't like this one-off case. And I think that was a good learning moment of, we don't need to bombard our audiences. Like, they know where to get information. We need to be thoughtful about joining in at the right moments and enhancing their experience versus, making it even worse for them.
That's a fantastic point. And one of the things too that's important about Reddit versus other platforms is, as you said, people know where to find answers if they're really looking for them. Most of the time, they'll, if you're there on a Friday night and you sort by new, you'll see some people that are just like ranting and just kind of airing their frustrations, and that's an okay thing. And you can actually really learn a lot from them. And most of the time, they just want to be acknowledged and they want to feel like they're being listened to. Because when they send an email or a request or a tweet and they don't get a response, that makes them feel worse than originally not. So sometimes you just have to be there for them, or you can say, DM them on the side and say, hey, I just saw your post. Here's some help. Always happy to chat and take a really empathetic approach. And one of the things that we did, and this was before the pandemic, but this is kind of where we started to realize the power of Reddit, was somebody had just made a post being like, wow, it's Girl Scout cookie season. Anyone know where to find them? And we just so happened to have, at that day, in that moment in time, there was a table of Girl Scouts selling cookies in our engineering center. And so I was like, this is fantastic. So I wrote like, yeah, come to the engineering center, ask for Austin, and I'll buy you a box. And we ended up having all these people seeing our posts. They come out, and I was like just dishing out Girl Scout cookies to people. And then the whole feed for that whole day was just like, oh my God, it's real. Like, thank you, CU Engineering. And it's those little wins that can go a long way on Reddit. And it's important to take that empathetic approach. And it became a meme for a while. And it was just really fun.
The two case studies that come to mind, one is her name is Dean J. She's at University of Virginia, so she often goes by Dean J at UVA. Is just a wonderful example of an individual that has created a personal username and is very active in popular subreddits, both for the university and for college admissions, to the point that people know who she is. They will pointedly ask her questions on there. She corrects misinformation oftentimes when people have false or misinformation about application deadlines or decision releases. And the other really great example is up in Western University, up in Canada, with Deka Builds, who has done a wonderful job moderating her Reddit subreddit to the point, again, and this is the power of Reddit. This is why I tell people, like, don't be too intimidated. It's like, if you do it well, like at Western University, their students will literally say, have you asked, I think her handle is, UWO admissions, or thank goodness that UWO admissions is in this subreddit. Like, the students will welcome you if you're doing a great job. So those are two people that I highly recommend folks who are interested check out.
That is so fantastic. Thank you for sharing all those examples. And Day is actually coming on a future panel to talk about Discord. So I almost put her on all the things, but we had to spread her out a little bit. So as far as our gaining experience and understanding of this platform, there's also some subreddits for that we could learn and build community from. It sounds like lots of pop culture stuff is out there, gaming, but are there any subreddits that you would recommend individuals to join that is related at all to maybe dipping your toes into Reddit in higher ed, if there are any direct?
I gotta be honest, none that come to mind specific to higher ed, but as you mentioned, the pop culture references and inside jokes that come from other subreddits, not specific to higher ed. Now, I hate to use this example, but Wall Street bets. We've all heard what's happened there. And all these inside jokes have come out of that subreddit, and it's toxic and it's a weird place, but it's popular and it's a center point, in the news now with the stock market. And you can kind of get a good grasp of what that side of Reddit is like. And more, 100% of the time, that's not going to be what's going on in your college subreddit. And I hope it's not. But that can give you insight into how people talk and communicate, the informalities. And I know it's not higher ed specific, but just looking at the front page every day, seeing what's popular. What's this Ask Reddit post that got 100,000 comments? Read through the top couple, And you'll start to see references to this crazy response in another thread and people will be like, oh, I know what you're referencing, because everyone wants to feel that validation of being no, especially when it comes to pop culture. So I think that's a good starting point.
I would add, especially if you think that your campus will be going the route of maybe doing more engaging, is joining some personal interest groups before you become yourself as the institution. So like I said, I like trashy reality TV. So, joining those conversations, trying to get a feel for, like, if I post something, is this engaging for other people? Do they seem receptive to it? And kind of finding your voice there before you then take it to a place where it could end up really poorly if you miss the mark with your audiences. So I think that kind of can be a safe way to dip your toes into Reddit too. Obviously, we all have lives outside of higher ed, or at least I hope we all do at this point, a year into a pandemic where we're living and breathing on our computers. So, whether that's you like gardening or you like trashy TV like I do, or, anything like that, I think that could be a good place to start being a person on Reddit, and then figuring out who you want to be on those higher ed channels.
That's a great point, Erica. And it'll also give you the understanding of the functionality on how to comment, how to sort, how to just get familiar with what a subreddit even is. And I see in the comments here too, we have one user that said rocket and diamond emojis everywhere in reference to Wall Street bets. And I've commented literal rocket and diamond emojis on the corporate account if someone's response is really good, as just a way to say, like, I'm also watching the stream, watching the feeds you're watching. And people love it because it's like, whoa, like this verified campus account, they're not out of touch. They're looking at the stuff that I'm also looking at because I'm on this forum. And that can go a long way.
Awesome. So it sounds like we do need to do our homework a little bit. Take the time to understand this, the how to internet within a Reddit context with an open mind, and know that each subreddit is going to be so much different and not perfect, and neither do you need to be. As we start to close out, thinking about pitching those listening on Reddit in whatever context, is there anything else that you wish that you'd like to share about Reddit that maybe we hadn't already? Either why higher ed should pay way more attention to this platform, or why a campus might not be ready? I would love to hear it.
Well, first of all, for the pandemic was the 6th most popular website in the United States. I think it's been bumped to 8 now that Zoom has skyrocketed up the leaderboard from that regard, unfortunately. But that is all to say, like, this is not some niche website that you can just be like, oh, well, I don't need to be there. Like, it is a very popular mainstream now place to be. You are absolutely missing out on conversations that are either about your campus or of value to you in understanding your audience. So I don't think this is some cute little place that you can or can't be. Like, you have to at least be focusing on listening and monitoring there. So I think that's probably the one thing I want people to know about the Reddit. And the other thing is, again, the lurking is so important because we've seen missteps from certain campuses, especially with AMAs. And from an admission standpoint, I've seen a lot of ultra selective colleges who have tried to do AMAs within a subreddit on Reddit. And if you're not committed to being open and transparent, like truly open and transparent in answering difficult questions, don't try. Just lurk.
And AMAs Ask Me Anything. And so we've seen some organizations and higher ed. I mean, I find, especially if that organization or campus maybe didn't have the best street cred already, throwing their CEO or president out there was probably correlated a little bit. But thank you, Steve, for that pitch.
I would say, kind of coming back to this, it's going to be more work. Maybe invest in having a student worker help you out with the lurking. We're already stretched so thin in terms of our day-to-day already. So I'm sure a lot of people are listening into this saying, oh my gosh, this is going to be more work for me. How am I going to find the time to do it? But I think that students are a great way we can capitalize on this. One, they're probably already on it, so they know where to go. They know who is already kind of speaking the loudest in those different subreddits. They know what's being talked about pretty frequently. So one, they're there, so it's kind of not a teaching moment for them. Like, just say, go for it, you know what to do, report back, if you will. But also, they're going to be the ones you'd want replying in most cases, jumping into those conversations, clarifying maybe some misinformation, or flagging things that actually do need an administrator to jump in to, kind of triage the issue. So I think students are a great resource in this case. I know that we have been talking for years about using them on social media in other ways. But I think that, Reddit especially is a good one to really be thinking about.
Yeah, I echo everything that's been said here. And I think for me, the most important thing is to not overthink it, but to also lurk and just read, constantly do your research. And if you do it right, you'll be thoroughly entertained if you can find the right interests while you're researching. And, when you go on this platform, you should treat it like unlike any other social platform you have. There's, really no formality to it. You should actually embrace the informality and the candor and bravado and tone that you say, and really just be empathetic, be that human, and know that you're just a person too, and try and relate to them. And you can go a long way just by doing that. So embrace the informality. Not everything has to be a polished response that has to go through 12 committees before it gets posted 7 weeks after the fact, Yeah,
Reddit is not run by committee work. Let's hear that. And such a relief, right, to get to just show up in a little bit more of that authentic lens. So, y'all, thank you so very much to my panelists, to those that have joined live, as well as caught the re-recording. This was so informative for myself. And I know in a year when we do this panel again, maybe the platform will have evolved, and hopefully we're like doing lots of hugs and handshakes, and we'll do these in person. But I sure did have fun this last week digging into Reddit. I am really proud of my username. It's Dr. Booster Seat. But also, like, you can go and again, you could go make as many accounts as you want if that relieves the pressure of exploring and lurking and experimenting on this tool. I think that permission is so powerful right now when we feel like we have to have everything quite so perfect. So, all right, that ends us for today. Thank you again to my panelists, and we'll see y'all next time.